record and see what happens here. Okay, apparently it's recording. Okay, so for the class today, we recorded this tonight, which is, what is this, Wednesday the 7th of February, and this is for the career prep class of the Police Foundations program at Northern College. And the guest that I have today is a friend of mine who's right now down, where are you? Hamilton?
Cornwall at the
Cornwall. Cornwall. So this is Matt Duke, and Matt is right now in the middle of his training. But Matt's going to talk a little bit about the portfolio aspect of gathering it together and how it helped him in becoming successful of exactly where he is right now.
So what do you want me to say?
Okay. Well, tell us where you are and kind of a little bit of background. What's been going on.
Okay, sure. So first of all, welcome to all of you. Congratulations for taking these steps. Sorry, I got a little pop up here.
Yeah.
To wanting to join law enforcement. And I know typically you think of law enforcement as a model of policing, frontline policing, and there's so many other aspects to it too. So I have been hired with the Ministry of Transportation as a commercial motor vehicle enforcement officer. And our primary mandate is to make sure that we help the OPP and various regional services keep our highways and our roads safe by monitoring the conduct of commercial motor vehicle operators. That's our sort of prime mandate. The application process is somewhat similar and in some cases dissimilar to policing. I've known Mac for many years, and Mac was a reference for me for a couple of different applications I've made for OPP and a couple of different municipal police services. I had a couple of close calls. All of you who apply, hopefully you'll all get hired. Sometimes you don't get hired on the first kick you can, but don't be discouraged. What's really important to know in your application process is that it's a learning progress. It's a progressive learning situation. So unfortunately with policing, you don't always find out why you weren't successful in the step that you were in, and you'll just get a letter saying you're been advised that you won't be proceeding. But don't be disheartened by that. Use that as a learning example and grow from that, and try and self-recognize maybe some of your weaknesses and areas that you can develop and grow on. And I did that. I was offered a position with the MTO in 2015, and for family reasons, I decided not to take it. For this time around, I was offered, and I accepted. And the process really is about documenting your story and what got you to being able to either submit an application or sit in front of a panel interview and convince the interview team as to why you're a good fit for that service. And part of that is obviously the steps that you've taken in your life of being responsible and maintaining a good driving record and, good credit, and, not being a buffoon in public and having that show up on your record. But also the other portion of it is documenting that. And I guess that's what Mac would like me to speak to today. And the importance of creating a storybook is one way that you could call it. And it's about keeping track of your documentation. So upon graduation, for those that want to apply, they're going to go out and take the steps to get their certificate of results with the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. And I strongly encourage each and every one of you to try and obtain that and to keep it current once you've maintained it, because you never know what policing opportunities or law enforcement opportunities present themselves. For the purposes of the MTO, we didn't require an Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police certificate of results. However, it was a really advantageous thing for me to have, because I was able to demonstrate in my application to them that I was already able to meet sort of the cognitive testing processes, the ability to do the WCT, or the sort of the written portion of it, and also the physical portion of it. And this is the first class that the MTO has adopted where the fit pin is going to be presented. We did a test last night, and on Monday we're going to all have the opportunity to acquire a fit pin. Mac, do you want to maybe just ask me some specific things just so that I don't ramble on forever?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so specifically what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's class is the gathering of the portfolio and why and I know that you had an extensive one. Why did you feel that you needed to do it, and why was it so important to you, and how did it benefit you?
One thing you're going to need to know when you go through the application process is the definitions of the terms of reference. And so they're going to say things like has the ability to demonstrate, or can show knowledge on, or has experience in, or can acquire the ability. These are all key terms you're going to want to decipher in the application process. And what I did over the years of developing my portfolio and the various services that I applied for is I made sure that when those key phrases were outlined in the application process, I got documentation put together so that I could give them concrete evidence, or I could demonstrate to them that I could, for example, obtain or possess a Class G driver's license with, fewer than X amount of demerit points. So in my portfolio, I included my driver's abstract, which I think is very important because as a law enforcement officer, you're going to be required to drive a vehicle. And they're going to want to make sure that you have the ability to maintain a driver's license without any suspensions for, unpaid fines or what have you, that you're not going to have any moving violations, or at least keep them to a minimum. And they're going to call you on those, and they're going to say, hey, listen, you had a moving violation, you were doing 115 and a 90. What's up with that? And so just being able to say, listen, that was a situation where, whatever happened. But with that abstract, you can use that to demonstrate that this isn't a pattern that you have. This might be a one-off, and you can explain it. Make sure you have your driver's abstract in that portfolio. Make sure that you have certainly your current original certificate of results in that folder. Make sure that when you flip it over on the back side, every time that you've met standard at the various levels of testing, they will stamp that or date it. If you've had to go back and recertify your prep, recertify PADI or WCT, make sure that you include those in there so they can see that you've made a concerted effort to keep your certificate at what they call meet standard. And by having that there, you can demonstrate that.
What about oh, sorry. No, didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to go into volunteer work. That's a really important thing, right? I mean, and it's for those of you who are, maybe out of high school 2 or 3 years and are now, in your final year of police foundations, often getting volunteer hours is a challenge. One of the things policing is really strong on, and they've told me, and I know I've read about it on many occasions, demonstrating your ability to work in a team and to volunteer in a team if you don't get the chance to work in a team is really important. So, if you've been stepped up and volunteered for a community organization, if you've had the opportunity to work with youth at risk, whether you've shown an initiative to be involved with Indigenous groups, whether you are Indigenous or whether you've demonstrated interest, if you want to do policing in the North, that's really key. Try and do what you can to volunteer. I know it takes a lot of time, but it's your determination and your willingness to demonstrate through your documented volunteer hours that you can put in there and get them signed. That's another really important thing too. So if you volunteer with maybe minor league hockey or minor league baseball or kids sports or something like that, it's one thing to say that I volunteered and I did this. Get a letter of recommendation from the organization that they can validate that the time that you've demonstrated on your application and your volunteer hours, you have a letter to match it. Make sure that you keep originals signed in ink, and include them all sort of chronologically. Because really at the end of the day, this binder, this portfolio, if you will, is your story. This is the story that you're trying to convey to your recruiting team.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been trying to push that so they understand it. And I think hearing from you firsthand, Matt, that how important that it is. And it's a quick reference for you too. So when you do apply, like you've applied to different services and the Ministry of Transportation, that it's all kind of geared to whoever you're applying to as well. So, and it's easy to pull out different letters and volunteer hours and everything so that you can apply it to that process.
Yeah, and make sure too that if you are looking for organizations to volunteer with or causes to volunteer with, do your best to make them relevant to policing. So as I had said before, working with youth at risk, working with youth truly, because a great thing about working with youth is you need to get a security background check done by the RCMP or a local police service. That's a demonstrable document that you can use to say that, hey, you know what, you're a good person. You're not someone whom society has to worry about the conduct that you could possibly be hiding. So do make sure that volunteering is relevant to policing. There's all sorts of different things you can do.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not going to keep you any longer because I know that you still have some night things to do with your training. So I'm going to let you go, but I'm going to stop the recording and I'll just talk to you for a minute. So
Okay, cool.
anyway, thanks a lot, Matt. And
Good luck, guys.